All right, well, welcome everybody to yet another Lunch and Learn. This will be an introduction to the series and why I think it'll be beneficial for our team to be learning this and trying to put these things into practice. So the title of today's Lunch and Learn is Why Relational and Cultural Intelligence Skills. Remember when we were talking about some of Stephen Covey's ideas, there was BQ, body intelligence, EQ, emotional intelligence, IQ, your intellect, and a lot of different Qs. Well, this series will be all about EQ, emotional intelligence, and a new one you haven't heard, CQ, which is cultural intelligence, which is kind of a part of emotional intelligence, but it's another topic we'll be looking at. So one time Google went looking for what makes a great team, and they studied their own teams. There was 180 total teams that they studied, and 250 different attributes that they were looking for in these teams. What makes a team high performing? They assumed before they did the study that it was who was on the team, right? Their talent, their seniority, their tenure, how long they've been working, the team size, or something like that. But they were wrong. There were a number of different findings, but the factor that made the biggest difference in the high-performing team is something called psychological safety. I don't know if you've heard that term before or not. It was how the team worked together, whether people felt safe to speak up and speak their mind, whether they felt safe to admit mistakes or even disagree, without fear of some kind of consequence. And the teams with high psychological safety were rated 2 times more effective, brought in more revenue for Google, and had a lower turnover rate, of course, because people like being part of a safe space. The technical skills were important, but they weren't the highest factor. It was how people were actually treated on the teams that made the biggest difference in their performance. Now, recently I saw an example of this, and I'm not going to name the person to keep it anonymous, but there was a good friend of mine who, out of the goodness of their heart, was doing something but ended up having a bad result. And we were discussing it, and someone, probably out of the goodness of their heart, said, "Why did you do that?" And the person just wilted and went to tears. And so why? Well, they were already feeling bad about the mistake they had made. And the kind of response is normal. It's like everybody's thinking that, but the way it was said and the timing it was said just felt like a judgment on them. And after that, they didn't really feel safe with that person, as safe as they did before. So there's different kind of responses and different kind of ways that we have of relating that can make others feel safe or unsafe psychologically, not in danger of getting beat up necessarily, but psychologically in our minds and in our hearts. And that makes a big difference. So that's a big reason why we're going to go into more of these topics in the coming weeks. Another reason we're going to be looking at cultural intelligence as well, along with this, is that normal is not universal. So all of us carry an internal rule book of what normal looks like. And it was likely shaped by your family, how you were brought up, your community, and many different factors shape what we think is normal. American directness can seem harsh, whereas Indian indirectness can seem very vague and unclear to an American. It is an example of just how normals are just different. It's not just across cultures, but even I think within our team, even those who grew up in a similar culture, grew up in different families. And there's probably different ways that your family related together as opposed to the person sitting beside you. How their family related and what was normal for them. And we assume that our normal is right. And when other people act differently, we're trying to figure out what's going on. It could be offensive, we could get upset with them, or we can just not understand each other. Normal can be different even in the same subculture. When the gap goes unnamed, it becomes stress for us. So we might have team drama, we might be talking about a difficult client, a complaint that feels really personal. Most of it is not actually hate on each other, it's just 2 normals that are colliding against each other. So a short, curt email might just be someone else's normal for efficiency. They're not angry, that's their efficient, one-liner, or just K, as was a response. The letter K. I actually felt a little like, what? He just said K. But that must have been his efficiency. It could be a teammate that goes quiet in a chat thread. We're having conversation, all of a sudden they go quiet. What do they feel? What's going on? What's wrong? Did I offend them? But maybe they just need some time to process the conversation before they reply. So you never know what's normal for them and you. Sometimes a complaint might land like an attack on you. Well, maybe that's that person's way of showing that this is urgent or something really important to them. And we just have different ways of communicating, different ways of speaking our mind and speaking up. So we have to understand that we're different in that way as a first step to starting to bridge the gap and become a team where we have psychological safety and where we can also bridge cultural differences with understanding. My favorite author, Stephen Covey, wrote a book called The Speed of Trust, and this is a one-slide summary. Basically, distrust is very costly, and trust is a big dividend or asset for any team. And he has something called the trust tax. And you know what a tax is? You're taking money, and none of us like that so well. But when trust is low, everything slows down and costs more money in a team. So every email might need a paper trail, or every decision needs that second signature. Every client message gets double checked. Like you can't even send a message anymore without having to check it or change this or that. And you probably can think of some examples of different things that have happened in Pro Synergy where it's like all of a sudden this got way harder simply because trust got a little low, and so we needed a lot more interaction or something like that happened, and it made us inefficient. But maybe it was necessary to build trust again. But there's a trust tax and there's a trust dividend. So when trust is high, the opposite happens. Everything speeds up. Communication goes faster. Unnecessary processes just kind of fall away, and our execution gets faster and cheaper. So in this book, when he did the study, he found that there was a 286% better total return to shareholders for high trust organizations versus low trust organizations. So it goes right down to the bottom line, to our profitability and to how well we can accomplish our mission of reducing suffering and restoring human flourishing. Emotional skills shows up 2 times as often as technical skill among star performers. So in other words, the highest performers usually got there because they had really good EQ, even more so than technical skills or IQ. The components I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. We'll talk more about these in future sessions, but the foundation is self-awareness, noticing your own emotional state before responding. Then self-regulation, which is the gap between when you feel something and deciding what to do about it. And then there is motivation, which is a drive to keep improving. And empathy, which is modeling what someone else feels rather than what you feel or what you would feel in their place. And then social skills, where it all comes down and gets really valuable, where you can turn all these things into positive engagements, where you handle disagreements or different normals coming together, making apologies or setting boundaries for yourself. These social skills are what can really increase our value and performance. So that's a quick introduction to EQ, and we're going to talk about it some more in the next 2 sessions. Then I mentioned CQ, this cultural intelligence. David Livermore did a study on this, and he had 20 years of experience in 150 plus countries, and he talked a lot about cultural intelligence. So this is a quick overview, but I'm going to be studying it more, and I hope to bring more insights to you all as I study the cultural intelligence thing. We're not going to learn cultural intelligence. But if we have this motivation, okay, even though that feels a little scary in this situation, I want to learn and do it because what is your motivation? Well, cultural intelligence will help my performance. I want to be able to interact with my American language students better or my American clients better and build a relationship with them. I've seen great examples of this at Pro Synergy. It all starts with that drive. So because it's hard, we need to have motivation to overcome the barriers. Then it's knowledge. So here's where you start to study and learn what are the differences between the 2 cultures. And I was going to bring the book. There's a book called Speaking of India, and I'm rereading it now. Amazing book that you'll just be like, wow, how does he name those things so clearly? But it was an American who was doing business in India, and he wrote this book about how the different cultures perceive different ways of communication. So that's a great book if you want to gain knowledge about this, and we'll hear more about those things in future sessions. Then CQ strategy. So if you're going to get on a meeting with an American or someone from a very different culture, then you have to think ahead and plan ahead based on what you know, what am I going to do when I get on that call? And make a plan in your head, and then of course CQ action, where you actually start to put, instead of just reacting to everything that happens, you think through, and that's emotional intelligence. Here's how I should respond. Here's probably what they mean, even though it sounds very different to me. And here's probably what they're thinking, even though that's not what I would think in that situation. So that's how you start to bridge cultural differences. For us, CQ isn't just something like adjacent to the job. It is the job, especially for those of us doing bookkeeping for US clients. Cultural intelligence is the job to be done.